Welcome everyone to today's Ninja Skill Booster with our special guest star, Lisa Hodgson, when we'll be talking about decluttering. So my name's Matt, for those of you that haven't met me before, and my business is Think Productive here in Australia. And it's a real pleasure to have you all joining us again here today. And for one of our Ninja Skill Boosters. This is going to be a short 30-minute session with lots of ideas, inspiration, ideas, and there's ideas twice, so obviously lots of ideas. So Lisa, let me introduce Lisa and we'll get straight into it. Lisa is a professional organiser and declutterer. Lisa has a background with many senior finance roles across large companies, working in different countries, with a career spanning about 25 years in that space. So Lisa really understands what it's like to be busy, overwhelmed, juggling work, family, life, all these different things. And now she is a professional organiser and declutterer. So what a great way to kick off the year. I'm going to hand over to Lisa now and say a very warm welcome to you, Lisa, and over to you. So thanks for coming, Lisa, and welcome everyone. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks so much, Matt, and thanks to everybody for joining the workshop today. It fills me with a great amount of joy to see so many people online and looking to learn a bit more about decluttering. And isn't it really a great time of the year to be having this conversation? I'm sure many of you out there may be feeling the after effects of Christmas and the bloating that can sometimes happen in many aspects of our life after Christmas. And also it's just a really great time, I think, to set some new intentions for the year ahead. And hopefully you might be inspired today to put a few decluttering things on that list. So yes, thank you. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to spend a very short amount of time up front just telling you a little bit about my own journey and my own clutter journey, and also how I went from being a finance director to a professional organiser. And then I want to talk to you a bit about clutter and how it manifests, and get you sort of thinking about some of the reasons why you might be struggling with clutter in different areas of your life, and also the impact that might be having on you. Then we're going to get into the good bit and hopefully help you set yourself up for success to manage the clutter in your life. And hopefully, if you can take one or two things away from this session and start to put those into practice, then that's great. My job is done. Please feel free to drop any questions as we go in the chat. I know Matt said that he will kindly monitor that and scream out at me if there's anything that he thinks is great to ask. So yeah, feel free to do that. So look, it might surprise you, but most people struggle with clutter today in some way, shape or form. I think, in years gone by, it was more of a problem for a few people. But I can tell you from the clients that I work with that, there is no mold of who has a clutter problem. I work with CEOs of some of Australia's largest corporates, well-known entrepreneurs. I work with busy families. I work with individuals. And I work with the elderly. There is no sort of profile of who struggles with clutter. So please, be reassured in that. If it's something that you're struggling to deal with, you are not alone. So just quickly, the reason that I started My Curated Life and my professional organising business is that I realised that I had a clutter problem myself. And going back about 3 years ago, I had, to the outside world, I had a great setup. I had a successful finance career, beautiful family, lovely home, going on nice holidays. Everything seemed rosy, but inside it wasn't. And I was feeling severely overwhelmed, and I felt like I was running from one thing to the next, and that I had no space in my life. And it wasn't just sort of physical space and feeling overwhelmed with all the stuff that was in my house. It was in my head as well. There was no room for anything else to be in there. And quite often things just disappeared from my head at moments, in moments of time. And so sort of recognizing this, I decided to take a 6-month career break. And during that time, I sort of stumbled across decluttering, and there was a few programs that I'd seen on the TV, and I was following a few people online. And so I thought, right, while I've got this 6 months, I'm going to start to declutter my home and, see what difference that makes. And, I wasn't a hoarder. I didn't have piles and piles of stuff in my house, but I seemed to spend all my time tidying up and moving things around my house, and it was driving me mad. So I systematically went through my home and really, followed the advice that was out there and looked at everything and questioned everything and removed the things that, we simply just weren't using or that we didn't love anymore. And the impact on me was so great. I felt like I had just lifted a huge burden, and in my head as well as in my home. My family, we seemed to function better. We knew where everything was. We seemed to have more time. And so it just had a huge impact on me. And what it did is it made me start to question other aspects of my life. And I took the same approach of questioning, is this important in my life? Do I need to be spending my time doing this? And I started to declutter other aspects of my life. So around work particularly was one, and around the emotional clutter. And through that process, I realized that, in fact, I didn't actually like my job anymore. And I'd taken on a new job at this point in time, and I'd spent 12 months actually decluttering a lot of the work that was involved in that job and getting it down to a really core amount of work. But having done that, I realized that I needed a change. And so I was so passionate about decluttering at this point in time. And when I looked around at the people that I worked with, I saw that this was a problem that lots of people were struggling with. And so I thought, how great would it be to help other people to remove the clutter in their life so that they could too experience these great benefits that I had. And so I started My Curated Life, and that was about 2 years ago now. And it's been quite a journey, but absolutely love it. And and I'm still learning, I'm still learning after 2 years. There's still things that surprise me, but it's a great job. Okay, so that's enough about me and my journey. Let's get into the bones of clutter. So I'd really love it if you could just drop into the chat box a couple of words that you see as defining what clutter is. So in your world, what how does that manifest? What is the clutter that you experience? Mess, yeah. Paperwork, chaos, absolutely. Yeah, work scribbles, brain strain, junk, too much stuff. Yeah, absolutely. All of those things are absolutely relevant. And look, there are many definitions out there and ways of thinking about it. There's the first one here, lots of objects in a state of being untidy. I think we can all recognize that, but there's a few here that maybe are not so obvious. So the physical manifestations of unmade decisions is one that I particularly love. So who out there has procrastinated about whether or not to delete an email? This is a great one. I think we all struggle with. And so you can't make the decision, so you do nothing, and the clutter just sits there and it builds. Old ideas, toxic relationships, and bad habits. I think this is a really interesting one, and certainly one that resonates with me. The things that we carry around in our head and the beliefs that we have, or, the impressions of ourselves or others. Anything that you don't need or love. And I think, quite often the focus on clutter is about, do you need it or not? And I think that's a bit narrow, because we all should have things in our life that they maybe not have a functional purpose, but we just love them. Like it might be just the visual thing, but we all need a bit of that in our lives. And the last one there, that useless things, not used, incomplete or broken. I can tell you that there is a lot of that stuff in people's homes. But the thing I think that's really relevant here is that there are many types of clutter these days. And I think certainly over the last 20 years, we've seen an explosion in different types of clutter. And I'm sure the second one on this slide will really resonate with most people. But the explosion of digital has just added a whole nother layer of clutter into our lives. Work clutter is one that is a really interesting one as well, I think, as the merging of our sort of work and home, I feel has added more work clutter into our lives and certainly impacts people. And then emotional clutter, as I mentioned earlier, the toxic ideas and relationships, but also the impact of the first three, those actual clutter from the first three ends up being emotional clutter and mental clutter in our minds. Now, the other question that I wanted to ask you is, how many of you out there have done some decluttering and found it hard? I'd love it if you could just let me know. Have you found it hard to do in the past? Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, I think when we sort of start to look at clutter, we can just focus on it very narrowly as being simply just removing things from either our home or our inbox or our head. And actually, it isn't that simple. There are sort of three different aspects to our clutter. And if we don't address all of them, we can end up sort of falling down and not getting the outcome that we want. And the way that I like to look at it is in this diagram here. So I like to look at it in three phases. So the first of those is what you bring in and why. And this can be, you can relate this to your home, but you can also relate it to your email inbox, your head, your work. And this is really about, the decisions that you make to allow something to come into your life. And I think in today's world, we're so busy that we often just don't have the time to think about whether or not we really need to bring this thing in. And there's some examples of this. So, a classic one that I'm terrible at is, you go into a shop, you buy something, and they say to you, "Oh, can I have your email address? We'll put you on our database." And without even thinking, there you are, give them your email address. And then before you know it, you're getting a daily or a weekly email from that company. And, then you've got to spend time deleting the email, thinking about it. You might even read a bit of it before you realize you're not interested in it. It's all creating work. And the same with our physical possessions. So, why do you actually buy the things that you buy? And are you making bad decisions in relation to those things? So bringing a focus and actually, spending the time to think about what it is that's happening that makes you bring things in that you don't end up needing. The second part is, how do you organize and manage your things once you've brought them in? Now, I can tell you that with the clients that I work with, so I work with a broad range of clients. Some of my clients have problems with bringing things in. So they're shopaholics, and I can hold my hand up and say that I used to be a shopaholic. I was addicted to online shopping. So I can completely understand that. But some of them actually don't have an issue with bringing things in, and they're really disciplined, and they're also good at getting rid of things. But they have an organization problem. So they struggle to put the systems and processes within their home to enable them to manage their things effectively. And so that results in jumble. And so, jumble is clutter, and it sucks up their time and makes it difficult for them to go about their daily lives. And the last point here is about letting things go. And this is also complex. So we have that, everybody is individual and people struggle with this in different ways. So I know a lot of people that really struggle to let go of things because they feel guilty about what's going to happen to that stuff. So is it going to go into landfill? Is it going to be wasted? And so, helping them to find the ways to get rid of stuff in a way that's responsible so that they don't feel bad about it is something that I work with my clients. But then also there is the emotional and behavioral aspect of letting go of things. So, some of us struggle particularly, with sentimental things because, we think that it reminds us of somebody, who's maybe not with us any longer, or we just feel guilty about getting rid of that thing because somebody that was important to us gave it to us, and we might actually not even like that thing. And it could be hidden away in a cupboard somewhere, but we just struggle to process in our minds that it's actually okay to let that stuff go. And then finally, the other one I think is around scarcity mindset. So a lot of people have a fear of, I can't let that go because what if X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G happens and I don't have that thing anymore? I'm going to feel terrible. And they sort of catastrophize, that what might happen. So it's complex. And so this is why it is a difficult, it's a difficult issue and many people struggle with it. But I think if you can think about it holistically in this sense, you're much more likely to be successful and embed habits which will last. So I'm just going to take a breath. So I just want to talk a bit about the clutter influences. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this over the last couple of years about, well, why is it that clutter's become such a big issue in our lives? And look, I don't think any of these things will come as a surprise to you. The digital technology side of things, it's in our face constantly. It's on our devices. The social media marketing that goes with that is relentless. We're made to feel like we need X, Y, and Z to be happy in life. We're constantly shown visions of people who seem to have it all. And so we think that, we just need that and that will make us happy. And the constant emails and the digital side of things where we're just bombarded, it's really difficult to get away from it. And so again, if you're not conscious of it, it can become overwhelming and it can result in a lot of clutter. Behaviors and emotions, I think this all ties in together with some respects to the digital and the social media marketing. It's tapping into those feelings that we have about self-worth and, that we need these things. But lastly, the biggest one, probably the biggest one for my client base, who are, largely time poor executives, it's simply time. Decluttering takes time, and most people just don't have that time these days. And, they don't want to spend their holiday time or their spare time decluttering because, it can be quite overwhelming. And, I think there's probably, better things that people can be doing with their downtime. And so often this is the reason that they get my company in to help out with this.
Lisa, I'll just interrupt there. I think I know you'd like to take a breath or two, probably.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with time is, what I find is I often might start the process, but only get halfway through. And then I end up with a pile of things that I either lose the time or the energy, or I come up against one of those emotional blockages that it's like, I can't finish this pile now. So it all goes back in a box and goes back in the cupboard or something like that, because we just don't have that time to finish. Is that a common problem?
It's so common, Matt. And, I go to many houses where people are like, I've got all these boxes for the charity shop. They've been here for 6 months and I actually haven't managed to take them to the charity
That
shop.
final, yeah, I've got a box in my van that's the same. It's like, no, I just haven't delivered it to the shop yet. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a danger, having a camper van. That's a danger in decluttering.
Oh, and garages are the worst for
yes.
people, you know. And so that's, again, it's a big part of our service, is that we take the clutter away. So we take the donations away. So when we leave a job, the stuff goes with us, and so that helpful. People get that instant result, I guess.
There's no turning back.
Yeah. So I would love it if you could, guys, if you could just drop a couple of words into the chat around how clutter actually makes you feel. What is the impact of clutter on you? How does it make you feel? Lazy, yeah. Overwhelmed, oppressed, yep. Stressed, tired, yep. Yep. I feel it, guys. This is exactly how it makes you feel. You are not alone. Okay, so I'm just going to talk. Sorry, wrong way. I will hopefully manage to work out which way my mouse goes by the end of this presentation. But it is overwhelming, the impact of clutter, and there's been quite a lot of research done about the impact it has on us. And here are some of the things that, you know, we can be impacted with. The cognitive overload, you know, people overwhelmed is you know, is one of the comments that lots of people put in there. But yeah, that busy brain, oh, I've got all this stuff on my to-do list. It's exhausting, and it does impact your productivity. Definitely stress. So we know that cortisol, the stress hormone, is higher in people who are living in cluttered environments. And so decluttering is actually a great, if you can see it through, it is a great way to relieve your stress levels. Relationships. Who hasn't had an argument about the mess in their home, either with, you know, your partner or other family members? I certainly am constantly nagging at my kids to deal with their clutter. Sleep's a really interesting one. So again, there's been quite a bit of research done about, you know, your sleep environment. So if you're going to sleep with loads of stuff cluttered up on your bedside tables, or a lot of visual clutter in your room, it can be harder to get off to sleep. So that's a really important one, I think, in today's world. Another couple of interesting ones. So health choices. So it's also been shown that people that are dealing with significant clutter issues also struggle with other aspects of their life around making healthy choices. So that might be, you know, getting out and doing exercise or cooking meals, consuming valuable time. So this is enormous, you know, the amount of time that we spend just moving stuff around, you know, and that's the physical stuff in our home, our email inboxes. It is sucking up a huge amount of our time, and that's time that we could be spending to do the things that are important to us, you know, to hit those goals that really are important to us in life. So another great reason why decluttering, you know, is a great thing and can impact your life. And this last one here, the cost of buying more space. I really don't think that we put enough thought into this one. And certainly in my own life, you know, I've you know, started with a 1-bedroom apartment, and then all the way up to a 4-bedroom house with a garage, with an attic. You know, often we live in our homes, we fill them up with stuff, and then we need a bigger place. And so we take on all this extra debt just to make more space for our stuff. And, you know, and that might be fine, but for a lot of people, that extra debt then becomes a chain around their neck, and it restricts their choices later on in life. And wouldn't it be great if we could actually get rid of more stuff and then reappreciate, you know, the space that we've got in our existing homes, and save ourselves sometimes, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And also, you know, I know there's a lot of people out there with paying for extra storage. You know, in the likes of Storage Kings and Kennards are just full of people's stuff, their excess stuff. So that's about it for, you know, the impact on us. But what can we actually do about this stuff, and how can we be more successful in our efforts around decluttering? So I'm going to share with you my my top tips, and I just want to reiterate, you know, decluttering is hard. It does require a degree of discipline, and it does require an investment of time. But I can promise you, if you can nail this, the benefits to you are life-changing. And, you know, my own story, you know, sort of proves that, but I see it with all the clients that I work with, that the impact it has on them is huge. So these are my 8 top tips. So the first one we talked about a bit at the beginning, which is around self-reflection. So spending that time looking at that process. Where are the things that you know that you're having a problem with? Is it the bringing the stuff in and the behaviors and emotions around that? Is it the organizing in your home, or is it the letting go? The second one is to do a clutter audit. So rather than just try and hit everything at once, which in my experience, if you do that, you're likely to get very overwhelmed very quickly and probably give up, is pick those areas that you're going to get the most benefit from. And my advice to you is to pick the areas that you want to be productive in, or that you want to relax in, and hit those areas first.
Lisa, can I just pause you there? I love that idea of thinking about what's the area I'd like to sort of improve in. And that's these first couple of points around the thinking it through first. We use the term psychology before technology at Think Productive, which is do the thinking before you do the doing. You know.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Can I just pause you there? What I'd like to do, because I'm happy to run this session over time today, because I don't want you to feel you need to hurry.
Okay.
But I know some people might need to leave. They might have a meeting at 9:30 or something. So what I suggest is, would you mind just going to your next page, which has your contact details?
Sure.
I think it's the next page. Or I just want to give everyone this slide for 30 seconds so they know how to contact you. Just for anyone that does need to leave. And I'm just going to put your details in the chat as well. And then we'll go back, and then we can just, for people that are able to stay, we can keep going, and then there's really no rush. Like I suggest we go for another 10 minutes or so. There's so many people joining us today, and there's so many people putting great questions in the comments. I really don't want to feel we have to rush. So for anyone that does need to leave, there's Lisa's contact details. You can scan QR code. Lisa is amazing. There's a link there in the chat to her LinkedIn profile and her phone number. I just want to make sure anyone that needs to leave gets this information. And there's also a link here directly if you just want to sign up to Lisa's inspiration newsletter, where she'll be sending you, that'll take you to her website. You can sign up there. So so we've got that out of the way, that people know how to contact you if they need to leave. And now, Lisa, let's go back and take your time. Feel free to, because this is brilliant. So take your time. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Pleasure.
So my third tip is to do things small and often. I don't know if any of you have read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, but he gives some I highly recommend that book to you, but he gives some great advice around this, about setting yourself tasks that are really easy to achieve, because you're much more likely to be successful if you can build momentum by doing things that are achievable over and over again. So it might even just be emptying out your wallet or your handbag or a drawer. Just pick your tasks and just do the small things first, but try and do them often. So, it might be challenging to do it every day, but, try and assign a bit of time each week just to do a little bit. Number 4 here is identify the cause. So again, this sort of goes back a bit to the self-reflection, but if you're tackling a particular area, and it might be, say, paperwork for you, what is the cause of that problem? A lot of people struggle with opening their post. I've sat and spent, half a day just opening somebody's post for them and going through everything that was in it. And, 10 years worth of posts, and often finding checks for a lot of money, which is fun. But yeah, really just think about, why is my clutter building in this particular area? Do I need a system in place to stop this from happening? Number 5 is to sort and categorize. Now, when we work with clients, we turn up with about 10 big plastic tubs, and there are sorting tubs. Because what we try to do is we go around the house and we go, right, we're going to tackle books maybe. So we're going to take all the books out from all around the house and we're going to categorize them. And that's just a really good way of looking at it, because you can see everything then that you've got in that category. And then that leads on to point 6 here, which is, once you've got all of that stuff together, you can then start to ask yourself questions about it. So an example might be, if you're doing your linen closet, the type of questions that you need to be asking yourself are, how many beds do I have in my house? So how many sets of linen do I need? Maybe one for each bed, and then one spare set, and maybe a couple for guests. But, ask yourself those challenging questions around, how much do I really need? And, do I just have this, am I just holding on to this excess for some of those reasons I talked about before: fear, uncertainty, scarcity, and really challenge yourself. And this is, we do this with our clients, is, we pull the stuff out, we sort and categorize it, and then we sit and ask them the questions. And that's how we then end up weeding out a lot of stuff. And we can do that quite quickly. Number 7 is then to organize. So you want to put in place a system that enables you to manage that stuff going forward. You can see things clearly, because that will tell you when you've got clutter. So when it starts to build up again, that's your prompt then that you've got clutter in there and you need to remove something. And, so that can be, right, this particular item is going to belong in this one home going forward, and it's always going to go back to there. And that's a really good way to do it, is to find one location in your home for each category of things. Try not to have multiple locations, because then that's when it becomes jumbled and sort of disorganized. Labeling is really great. And I find, in family homes particularly, because you might set up a fantastic system, but nobody else knows what that system is, and before you know it, somebody's unpicked your system and things are a mess again. So yeah, using labels and trying to educate the rest of the family around how that works. And the last one is to remove things. So if you're going to go to the effort of pulling things out, asking yourself all those hard questions, and then categorizing it, things that are going to go to charity, things that are going to be recycled, you need to remove that stuff immediately for the reasons we talked about earlier, Matt, about otherwise that stuff can end up hanging around. And just a word of warning. So I think, be honest with yourself about the time that you have. So, many of the people I talk to ask me about selling things, and they're really keen. It's got great value in it, this, I want to sell it. But what they fail to do is recognize the value of their own time. And they don't have the time to sell those things. And so whilst they think I could get, $50 for it or whatever, they don't have the time to spend an hour, putting that online and then dealing with the correspondence aspect of trying to sell things. So be realistic with yourself about that. Often it's better to just pass it on, whether that's pay it forward or put it into the charity store, because you just simply don't have the time. And with the removing things, great idea is just do a bit of research up front about where you can get rid of things, and create a list, in your local area. Where are the different places that you can donate things to, and what can you donate? And there are some fantastic organisations out there now for recycling your stuff. Within I know within Sydney, we have a program now called Recycle Smart, where they'll collect tricky items from your doorstep. And I'm sure, wherever you live, there are programs like that around. So just doing your research around that to make life easier for yourself. So, you know how you're going to get that stuff out of the house. So honestly, I think if you can keep these 8 things in mind and try to do each of these, your success at decluttering is going to be greatly improved. So finally, I just wanted to talk very briefly about the benefits of decluttering and organising, and I talked a bit about my own experience in it, but these are the words of some of my Curated Life's clients in the testimonials that they have given to us. And I think these tell a story in themselves. It genuinely can be life-changing. Getting rid of distraction and noise and unnecessary things really helps you focus on what's important. And by focusing on what's important, that can often lead to a sort of chain reaction of changes in your life, or just moments of clarity, where you can make life-changing decisions about, your goals or what you want to do with the rest of your life. And this is really the reason why people talk about decluttering so much, and the power of it. So I think that is about it from me. It would be amazing, please, if any of you out there would like to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm so grateful. I can see all the amazing questions and comments in the chat, and I would love to sort of spend a bit of time looking at those. But please, if you've got a question about decluttering or a particular challenge that you've got, please connect with me on LinkedIn and drop me a message. I will happily respond to those. And, we regularly put out tips and advice on LinkedIn around decluttering, and also about all of the issues that we've talked about and how to deal with those. If you'd like to see some of our work, we love a good before and after, and there are many of those shots on Instagram and also Facebook. So please follow us on there. And finally, if you are one of those people who is, you see the benefits and you want to get it done, but you just don't have time, please reach out. We love working with busy executives. The services that we offer are in-home decluttering and organisation. We also source organisation products for you. We bring those to your home and install them. We can help you when you're moving house, which is a great time to declutter. We also do wardrobe curation. So we're trained in colour consultancy, so we can help you understand why maybe you don't feel great in some of the things in your wardrobe. And we can use that as a tool to help you declutter your wardrobe. And we also do space planning and built-in furniture design. So if you're doing a renovation and you're putting cabinetry in, we can look at all of the things that you've got that need to be stored, and we can help create a plan for how those will be organised in your new property. And finally, corporate workshops, and like today, talking to employees about the benefits of decluttering, and they can apply those to work and home. So that's it from me. I just wanted to say a huge thank you, Matt, for inviting me today. It's been a pleasure to join you, and thanks so much for everybody online who's taken the time to listen to me this morning. And happy
Thank you, Lisa.
decluttering.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And we will keep chatting if you want. Are you able to stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes? And
yeah,
we'll
sure.
go through so if anyone wants to stay and just keep chatting, we will. Just before we all disappear, Lisa, if you could just put up that next slide about the 6 weeks to Ninja program.
Yeah.
Just a quick plug, if you like, a quick advertisement for our 6 weeks to Ninja program that's about to start next week. So this is a brilliant program where we spend 2 hours a week together online, going through most of our Ninja training over a 6-week systematic process. So that's just a quick plug for that. If you want to have a look at that, there's the link in the chat for you. Early bird tickets are available at the moment. So jump on there if you want to do that with us. I know so many of you on the line are Ninja fans, and this could be a great way to embed some of the learning you've already done. Or if you've never done any Ninja work with us, come and do it. So Lisa, if you want to go back to your slide, whichever slide's relevant, maybe the 8 steps or something like that, or even just your contact details or whatever you like. Yeah, that one's a good one. And we can just answer some of these great questions. A question that I was very interested in was about decluttered sleep environments. I've just made a few notes because these have been scrolling through the screen, so I'm sorry if I don't know who it was from. But decluttered sleep environments, do you have any thoughts on that, or any particular books to recommend or something about, I guess, the bedroom, decluttering bedrooms?
Yeah, look, I think when it comes to bedrooms, the research out there is as calming as possible. So, even down to what's on your walls, is the environment calming and soothing and relaxing? And anything that creates visual distraction, it fires your brain up. And so that can, stop you from decompressing and getting into that relaxation mode that enables you to go off to sleep. So, but with the bedside tables, having as little as possible on there, maybe just your book, a glass of water, and whatever else you need to go off to sleep, and just the stuff that you need as a necessity.
I like that idea. I do like the book, The Sleep Revolution by Ariana Huffington. That's a book that we often talk about in our workshops. And she talks about, so that's called The Sleep Revolution. She talks about sleep hygiene, which is all that kind of just getting yourself ready, not just like physical hygiene, but the hygiene of your environment as well. Yes. So many great questions. Once again, before you all leave, I know a lot of you are having to leave. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just going to keep chatting for a little while. Another question here, Lisa, was about, do you have recommendations on places to donate? So people were saying like the Salvation Army will pick up furniture. You mentioned that recycling one. What was that called?
Yeah, so that's a Sydney-based thing. So Recycle Smart. So they will
Smart. Okay.
Yeah, you just basically subscribe to them, and they're not in all areas of Sydney yet, but they keep adding on extra areas. But you just leave a couple of bags outside each month, and they will collect it, and they'll pick up like e-waste, so old phones, laptops, tech stuff, batteries. They pick up clothes, soft plastics. There's a whole range of stuff. The other one that's really
the fact that they pick it up from your house is so great, because these are the things that often end up in the boot of the car or in the garage that we never get to do that final stage. Sorry to cut you off there, but someone mentioned Officeworks as well for that sort of e-waste and batteries and things. Yeah. Sorry, Lisa, back to you.
The other one, which I highly recommend for textile waste. So, many things that we have are not suitable to go to charity. They're stained or they're ripped or they're just sort of worn. There's a great business called Apparel, and they will take basically any textiles and they recycle them. And it is a paid service. So you fill up like a tea chest, like a moving box, and they will take 10 kilos in a box that size for $25, and they'll collect it from your doorstep. And you do actually so they make socks. So they give you a credit voucher for socks, for each purchase that you make. But I use that with every client, because things like towels and linen, you can't generally donate those to charity shops. Sometimes you can take them to, animal shelters will take those sorts of things sometimes. But yeah, Apparel is a fantastic service, so highly recommend that. Yeah, someone's put H&M. A lot of the stores are doing that. Sheridan also take old Manchester back now as well. I think there's a lot of corporates are trying to get on the bandwagon with this. Cosmetics, and I think you can take to Mecca. They have a collection point for that now as well. So there's so many options out there that you really shouldn't feel guilty getting rid of anything these days.
Yeah, it's possible. and that's just how we often have this thing, I don't want it to go into landfill. So there are all these other options, because that, as you mentioned, that's one of the barriers sometimes, is I don't want all this stuff that could still be used going into landfill. Lisa, there was a question about, sorry, back to you.
The other thing I was going to say that I also use a lot for tricky things that are, the charity shops have become quite fussy about what they'll take, and often they won't take electrical equipment and other things. But I use Facebook pay it forward sites all the time. So inevitably there's somebody in your local area who will want what you've got to give away, and it's a relatively quick way to get rid of things, I find. So you just post the picture up there, and then they just message you, and you just arrange for it to, I often just leave stuff out the front of the house and they collect it. So that's another great way of getting rid of things.
So is that an actual part of Facebook like marketplace, or it's more just like a community group?
Community. So okay. Yeah, each suburb has generally got their own community pay it forward site.
And it's called Pay It Forward. I didn't know that. That's great to know.
Yeah.
There was another question about and I have this one. I've got quite a few shirts and trousers that I don't necessarily fit into as well these days. particularly thanks to COVID.
With that.
Yeah. So as there was a question about all the wardrobe, and I know you mentioned you'll do the wardrobe as well. But what about hanging on to all these clothes that are really lovely, but they're just one size too small or a couple of sizes too small? Because one day I'm going to get there is the positive thinking, I guess. How do you manage that with your clients? Because I guess you don't want to say, come on, get real. You're not going to lose those 5 kilos.
Yeah. The thing is, though, right, you can't. But whilst there's the one angle of it, which is I don't want to get rid of this because I don't want to have to spend the money again if I get there. Yeah. But the flip side of it is, by having that in your wardrobe, it makes you feel bad. So
that's a really good
because
point.
Every time you open your wardrobe, you're looking at that dress going, oh, I'm still too fat for that. And it makes you feel bad. So my advice is be realistic, be honest with yourself. And look, if you do lose the weight, treat yourself to something new because you deserve it for the hard work.
Yeah.
But it is a common problem. And I think particularly for women, when we've had children, and you don't really know, you put the weight, you don't really know whether you're going to get back to that size. So my advice in that situation is to pack it up, take it out of your wardrobe so that you're not faced with that negativity each day, and put it somewhere, but put an expiry date on it. So, write
a date
great
on idea.
It, which is like 6 months time. And then you go back and in 6 months, and if you still don't fit into it by then that's the time to move it on.
That's a really good idea. And that I could see that actually personally as being kind of inspiring as well, because I've got a 6-month goal. In 6 months, I'm going to get there,
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. Catherine's mentioned declutter your health aims. Yeah, often we have too many health aims, don't we? And often we have too many goals. Even decluttering our goals is a good one.
Well, and it comes back to that sort of bombardment of the digital and social media, where we're just constantly bombarded with, you need this, this is, do this and your life will be great.
That's it. Oh, I could talk about this for hours. I need you to come and work with me, I think, Lisa, do my house. We're just about to move house. So we've decluttered a little bit before moving house. If anyone's got a final burning question, feel free to put it in the chat again, because there's been so much I could easily have missed things. Feel free to put another question in there just before we wrap up, if any, because we've still got 50 odd people with us. So thank you everyone for staying around. This is fascinating. Lisa is just amazing. I can sense that the feeling of just wanting to hang out with Lisa and come and sort out my life. Photo albums. Sarah's asking a question about photo albums. Well, an exclamation mark about photo albums.
Yeah, look, there's some great, there's different aspects to this that people struggle with. I think people struggle with managing the digital photo albums, and if you don't have a good system or a tool to use for that can be challenging. There's also the paper aspect of it. So a lot of us of a certain age still have the paper photo albums hanging around. But there's some really good businesses out there now, where you can literally just take all your photos in and they will scan them in. I'm a massive fan actually of, I like to create photo books. So, I organise on the Mac, and then periodically I'll just get it all printed into a photo book, because I find, the family like to actually look back at those pictures, and it's nice to turn the page to a book, but that's very personal. And I do think, how you go about your photos is a personal thing.
Yeah. And maybe because I struggle with that one as well. And there must be a course out there somewhere that you can do on a community college or a TAFE or something about, because often the struggle is often a technology struggle as well. Like if we're not so good with the digital aspect.
There is actually there's a company that I know about, and the name of them has completely gone out of my head, but I'll drop you a note, Matt, so that you can include it in a future sort of correspondence. But there is a company out there that run training for it. They run courses on how to manage your photos. So I'll send you a link to that.
I mean, photos are just so precious.
Yeah.
And we've got thousands of photos on our phones now that we often don't look at. And I love the idea of photo books. So Lisa, if there's any chance of getting the name of that business in the next sort of hour or so, then I can include it with the email that goes out with this recording as well.
Right.
Well, I think we better wrap up so everyone can get on with their day. But Lisa, if you want to just go to your final slide again with your contact details, we'll just land on that slide. And so this is a life-changing, I haven't done the work with Lisa yet, but I totally get the life-changing aspect of this. And I know that her clients give amazing testimonials and feedback as well. So thank you again, Lisa, for your time and sharing this with our Ninja community.
No, thank you. It's been my absolute pleasure. And I hope everybody has a lovely day.
Thanks, Lisa. And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you all soon. Have a great day.
Bye.